When you're helping someone with their business, this is their baby. And so for me to have an opportunity to help you with your baby, let me at it. That's a gift. And so I did it.
Bookkeeping, accounting, CPA, taxes, all of these terms that are tossed around, help us unpack these terms to the business owners.
The financial statements tell the story of your business. We can look at the past, the present, and the future. Bookkeeping, that's the part of putting the transactions together, putting them in the right place. Accounting is interpreting those numbers. That's the part that's storytelling. And that's a wonderful thing because it's so personal. It's your story and it only belongs to you. And I can help you read it and understand it.
Molly Salas, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
So business owners in the Inland Empire are going to have a treat today because we're bringing one of the experts in the industry when it comes to accounting services, and you're the founder of Small Business Accounting Services. Mm-hmm. So I want to start by telling the people watching and listening to us, who is Molly Salas and what's your background?
So I'm Molly Salas and I'm an accountant of 30 plus years. Now, I'm not old, but I started very young. And my first opportunity that I had was I was a student at Cal State LA, and I got a job as entry-level accounting clerk. And they lost their accounting manager, and so I asked the owner, what about me for the job? And he goes, if you think you're 10 years ahead of your time, he goes, make yourself an appointment with their outside CPA firm. So I knew how to do financial statements. By then I already had been studying accounting. And so I did. And I ended up being 4.0 in accounting. My undergrad degree is actually in business education. So I was going to be a business teacher. But I ended up being 4.0 in accounting. I didn't see that coming, but that's how it ended up. So I could do the accounting. I knew how to do financial statements. So I went to the interview, and I had no real experience, only book knowledge. And so the only thing I had, I took my books and my tests that showed my grades, and I sold myself, that I could do this job. And the manager, I guess he was impressed with the guts that I had. I was very young back then. I was 21 years old. And they ended up hiring me for the job. So I went very quickly from point A to point B. The owner was so kind. He paid me what the job paid. I still get emotional.
Right.
Because I didn't have the real experience. I only had the guts.
Right.
And the grit is what I had.
Yes,
Grit.
Very
And
important.
so I tripled my income. And I was baptized by fire in that first year,
Of course.
You have to learn real world management, all those things. And so a year later at 22, I bought a house as a single woman. Wow. I always had a business mind. And then so the rest is history. I've been working in accounting ever since.
But what's interesting for me is you got the job, but then you started your own business.
I did.
That transition, tell me about what made you take the leap to say, okay, I'm ready now to launch my own thing.
Because in accounting, no matter what the industry is, the principles are pretty much the same. And it's part of my personality that I have grit, and I'm able to see the big picture. I always have, and I was born that way. Obstacles may be there, but I've never have been intimidated, and I was just born that way. And so I could see the big picture. I said, I could do this for multiple businesses. I don't need to just do it for the one. And then I enjoy what I do. It's very personal. It's extremely personal. When you're helping someone with their business, this is their baby. And so for me to have an opportunity to help you with your baby, let me at it. That's a gift. And so I did it. That was what I wanted to do. And it did come true. That's what it has ended up being over the past 30 years.
I love this. And the thing is, when we start businesses, obviously I'm an entrepreneur as well. People, when they start businesses, they start because they have a passion for something.
Yes.
I have passion for cameras and, marketing and all of that. But I have no idea about when it comes to numbers. I'm staring at the Excel sheet without knowing what's going on here, right? And a lot of business owners probably watching are like that. They are business owners passionate about something, but when it comes to their finances, they are, point blank, right? Mm-hmm. So they hear a lot of terms: bookkeeping, accounting, CPA, taxes, all of these terms that are tossed around. But no, as a business owner myself, I have no idea what are the differences. So help us unpack these terms to the business owners who are watching you right now.
Numbers can be intimidating. It's confusing. It's natural. It's a very natural thing. But what I try to convey to business owners is that the financial statements tell the story of your business. We can look at the past, the present, and the future in reviewing and analyzing your financial statements. Financial statements tell the story of your business. The same thing like a photo album will tell the story of your family. I just told you that when business owners have their businesses, that's their baby. It really is, especially their first business. And so I can interpret those financials for you. Bookkeeping, that's the part of putting the transactions together, putting them in the right place. Accounting is interpreting those numbers. That's the part that's storytelling. This is where I tell you, this is where your business has been, this is where you're at, and we could even look into the future. We can do projections. And that's a wonderful thing because it's so personal. It's your story, and it only belongs to you. And I can help you read it and understand it.
A lot of the business owners that I talk to usually don't have a bookkeeper or accounting service on board throughout the year. They would be like, oh yeah, in the end of the year when tax season comes, they bring someone to do their taxes and they're done with it. Mm-hmm. So why is that the wrong approach?
It's the wrong approach because it's too late. And we need to monitor your financials early on, at least quarterly. And we want it for a combination of reasons. We want to make sure that the bookkeeping is correct. We want to make sure that we can advise you properly. That whole storytelling, where are you right now? Where do you want to be? If things are good, we want to do some tax consulting so that at the end of the year, you're not hit with a big tax bill. If things are not going so well, we need to bring that to the table too. Let's look at that. What can we do differently? And we can change the course of what happens from March to the end of the year, December. So it's advisable to let's look at those numbers at least quarterly, not at the end of the year.
And sometimes business owners think that the software is going to solve their problem. Mm-hmm. Oh, I got QuickBooks. Mm-hmm. But honestly, I'm a user of QuickBooks and I don't understand nothing. The buckets are so the charts of accounts. I don't understand where to put what. This transaction, where should I put it? So, or the debit and credit things. So there's a lot to unpack. Even when you have a software, you still are blind and you don't know how to use the software. So what can you say for people who think, oh, the software is going to solve the problem?
Well, unfortunately, a lot of people have that disbelief because it's not, software is only software. It's only a tool. That's where you need an accounting. You need someone like me. I'm a professional with 30 years experience. And a lot of business owners make the mistake that, oh, I'll do it myself, or I'll hire my family member, or I'll hire what I call pop-up bookkeeping services, but they don't have an accounting background. Software, it's only software. You need an accounting background or hire someone like myself that will show you where to put the numbers. It's not so straightforward. So you need an accountant like myself.
Let's pivot now to you as a business owner, because at the end of the day, when you run an accounting firm, you are, yes, an accounting expert, but also you're a business owner. And I was wondering, how did you get the first client? Because the first client is usually the most difficult one to get, according to like my experience with business. But how did you land your first client?
This was in 1996. And back then, we advertised through the Yellow Pages. We don't have that anymore, modern technology. Now we have social media. But that's how we did it. And my first client was a retail store. They did flooring, carpet, tile, all that. And this was their baby. This was their business, first business. And they had two stores, one in Montclair and one in Rancho Cucamonga. And I already had a lot of experience in education under my belt by the time I, went to them as my first client. So let me think.
So they contact you.
Okay, so
they respond to the ad from the Yellow Pages.
From the Yellow Pages.
Okay.
And then so I went over there and set up their accounting system.
Okay.
Make sure the chart of accounts is set up correctly. Make sure there's internal controls in place.
Were you nervous? Like it was your first client on your own, or because you've done this on the job before, so you were like kind of like business as usual?
I wasn't nervous because for me it was business as usual. Mm-hmm. And I knew that I could help them. Mm-hmm. And we did. I went through 2 audits with them, sales tax, payroll tax. And it's very interesting because in every industry is different. Their industry was retail. And as it turns out, their Montclair store, which was their first store, ended up having to close. Mm-hmm. But this is the beauty of the financial statements. They did not end up upside down. I helped them to read their financial statements. I was there to help them. I was there 110%. And they knew it. They knew it. Anything happened, call Molly, call Molly. We were friends, and that's how it is. It's personal. And with them, they ended up having to close that first store.
Because you advised them to, because the financials were telling the story, and it's a dim story about their Montclair store.
That's exactly what happened. And so they were able to make a wise decision. It was not an easy decision, but it was a wise decision. And they had their other Rancho Cucamonga store, so all the product was moved over and whatnot. And but I was there when they closed that first store. It was very, very sad, but it was a wise decision. And that's where the financial statements come in. That's where my profession comes in.
Yeah, and business owners have a lot of pride, and they want to grow at any cost. And sometimes we need people like you, like wise people who come and tell us like, hey, which one is better, to grow and go bankrupt, or maybe let's pivot, let's close one, let's consolidate, right, and then let's start growing on the right foot again. Mm-hmm. And so that's a good lesson for a lot of business owners to don't be blinded by growth. Listen to what the finances are saying. Hire experts. Listen to their advice, and put your pride aside. Sometimes we have to put our pride aside, say we need to stop, and then launch again. So common bookkeeping mistakes that business owners make.
I would say that is hiring the wrong person. A lot of times they don't realize the importance of the accounting. So they think, oh, I could do it myself, or I'll have a family member do it, or I'll hire one of those pop-up bookkeeping services. But they have to be aware of that it's not true. You really need someone that's a professional that has an accounting degree. So it's important to do that. Otherwise, what happens is their bookkeeping, so many mistakes can be made, and it ends up costing the owner a lot more money to clean up the books than if they had just hired a professional in the beginning. The tax consequences can be great if they end up in an audit, if their books are not done right. So there's a lot of costly mistakes that could happen if they just don't hire a professional at the beginning. That's one of the biggest mistakes I see.
Right. And can your services be conducted remotely, or you have to be present in the business?
They can be conducted remotely. I do a lot of remote services with my clients. I'll go and visit them in person, but a lot of the accounting is done remotely. A lot of these pop-up accounting services, they advertise like, oh, I could do it on the fly. I can travel and do it on the fly or do it as a side gig. It's not true. It's not true. You need a professional that is going to give it the time and attention deserved. And for a business owner, after putting that much money and interest and blood and sweat into their business, they have to put the value into their financial system as well. It's that important.
I want to ask you about a success story. Tell me a project that was kind of challenging. There was some sort of drama there, or you saved a client some, major problems you uncovered. Anything like that?
Yes, I have a lot of stories like that. But one that I can think of was I was hired to clean up a company, and they had an in-house bookkeeper. She did not have a degree in accounting, which is fine. But businesses just have to realize to be mindful of that because you don't want to have false expectations of them. So I was hired to go in there and clean up the company. And in that, I ended up finding that their receptionist was stealing money from the company. And she was doing it through the payroll.
How?
You might think. But if the payroll's done through an outside service, how could somebody possibly steal money from the company? And it can be done. There are some people that are just not very nice people. And if they find a weakness in the internal controls, they'll take it. And she was a receptionist. She was not a degreed accountant. She was not a CFO. She was the receptionist. But the mistake that happened is that their in-house bookkeeper allowed her to process the payroll. So she turned in the hours to the payroll service. You would think, oh, there's nothing wrong with that. But the bookkeeper also gave her permission to post the payroll to the general ledger. She showed her how to do it. And then the in-house bookkeeper did not review it. No one reviewed it. So what this lady did was she had been working for the company for over 10 years. So she had 3 weeks vacation due her. So when she went on vacation, she paid herself 3 weeks before she left. And then when she got back, she paid herself the 3 weeks again.
Wow.
And then throughout the year, whenever she needed extra money, she paid herself overtime. 4 or 5 hours overtime, so it gave her extra spending money. And no one looked at the records. The information was there. No one looked at it.
And you may think, like, receptionist, how could she pull something like that?
She did. And when you look at the in-house records, she covered her tracks. They're called transmittal sheets. So on the day-to-day payroll processing, she put herself down for 40 hours. But when you look at the actual records from the outside payroll company, it showed she paid herself 120 hours. It showed everything, but nobody looked at it. There was no oversight. And the way I caught it was that when I review a company, I look at everything, payroll, inventory, everything across the board. And I knew what the receptionist's hourly wage was. And this is going back to the 90s. When I see a receptionist earning over $100,000 in a year, there's a problem. That one stuck out like a sore thumb, but nobody looked, at the actual records. So when I looked and I audited going back 3 years, she was consistent for the past 3 years. And she had been there for over 10 years. So I don't know exactly how long she had been doing it, but she got away with it for 3 years. And in the end, the owner ended up firing her. And what we ended up doing, it was a hard lesson for him to learn, but we then implemented internal controls. Right. There's something called segregation of duties.
Yes, I want to ask you about this. But before, for employees who are caught doing something like that, could the business owner pursue legal actions against them?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Okay. This man was very kind. He did not prosecute her. He could have. He didn't. He just fired her.
Okay. So now tell me about the internal controls, because for novice people like myself, I don't know what that is.
Internal controls, it's just checks and balances. In that environment, there should have been oversight. And she, as a receptionist, should never have been posting to the general ledger. They had an in-house bookkeeper to do it. Right there is a failure of internal controls. And then Management, it's management's responsibility to look, or at least the owner, to look at those things, look at the payroll reports, look at them, and hire someone like myself. I'm a third party outside. When I look at something, I'm looking at it from a very different perspective, and so you just have to have those internal controls in place. There's quite a few different combinations of things, but in a nutshell, it's checks and balances.
So let's say I'm a business. I have maybe 5 employees, and we have you on board as our accountant firm, and we're using QuickBooks. So for the daily transactions, let's say we have a receptionist or somebody in the office to basically enter the daily transactions or categorize them. How can we install checks and balances so that we make sure that that receptionist is not, stealing?
Well, that's a good question because with a lot of small businesses, sometimes they can't afford to hire an accountant or to have more staff for oversight. So when someone like me is hired at the get-go, I implement those checks and balances, and it comes down to segregation of duties. So even if it's just a matter of having a clerk do the payroll, transmit the hours, that's okay. But if they can't hire an outside accountant, then I train the owner. You at least look at the payroll reports independently. And you don't have to do it every week, once a month, but look at it. Because if there's something happening, you're going to see it.
So right now you are based in Redlands, and you serve small businesses in the Inland Empire. And when we say small businesses, it's funny. I read the definition of small businesses in the U.S. and it's like 400 employees, up to 400 employees. So small business is a wide array of companies out there. What is your ideal client? Who is your ideal client?
My ideal client will be someone from 5 to 10 million
in revenue.
In revenue a year. And businesses, they're so different. Every industry is different. And so small business, when I say a small business, it's not necessarily a baker on the corner. It could be a manufacturing firm with over 400 employees, and they can run a day shift and a night shift, because that was one of my clients. They manufactured windows that they sold to builders. And so, that's a small to mid-sized business. And as the numbers get bigger in accounting, we don't really see it. The numbers really are larger numbers, but in terms of accounting, it's not that much difference from 5 to 10 million.
And do you have like specific industries or sectors that you prefer? Like, do you prefer service businesses or, retail stores or manufacturing? Like, what kind of like your favorite business in that sense?
I don't really have a favorite. And it's like if you go into an ice cream store and there's different flavors, they're all different flavors and they're great. Each one is great and they're all different. So it's nice because it's interesting. It gives you something different. Manufacturing companies, I love manufacturing companies. If I could take school kids in as a field trip to a manufacturing firm, I would do it because it is so fascinating. If you put together these 5 different parts and then you make this other one part, it's quite interesting when you see it. And then the accounting part, it's different too. The way we handle it in terms of accounting, there are different methods. And then construction is its own beast as well, because it's very different from manufacturing. Construction, when they bill their customers, they bill like percentage of completion. And they have different lien releases that are due at different stages in the project. And that's fascinating in itself. And then construction company, if they do a public works job, they have to pay certified wages. It's a higher rate than normal rate, and it's required for union jobs. And then that takes us into a different ballgame. We have to submit those certified payroll wages to the state. So that's its own little different aspect. A law firm would be different. I even worked on auto body shop. And again, if I was able to, I would take kids into that business to go look because it was fascinating. You take your car in, you were in a car accident, it's damaged, right? To see the process of how they do it. They have the first part that does the auto body, then it goes through stage 1, 2, 3, 4 for the paint. And there's really a painting booth and the different levels that they do to get their job done. And then when you see the end product, it's a brand new car. So that is fascinating. I love it. And the accounting is different for that type of work as well. So for me, I'm a team member. I'm a player with that business. And I love it. It gives me an opportunity to be a part of something bigger than myself. And I get to see the end product. I get to be with the business owner and with that business from point A to point B. And for me, that's very satisfying. I love it.
I love it. Yeah, it's like you rise up to the challenge. When you enter a business now, you start like discovering how they do their billing, and it's fascinating. Advice for business owners right now, like we're in 2025. What is like the most pressing piece of information that you have accumulated from your years of experience, and you want to tell business owners, okay, please don't do this mistake, do this?
I would say hire someone like myself. Do the research. Make sure that you get an accountant that is a degreed accountant. There is a difference. I have 30 plus years experience. What I see is very different from an entry-level person would see. Very different. And so just do the legwork. It's your business. You have invested a lot of your time, blood, sweat, and tears, and money and investment into your business. So hire a professional. Let me help you. And then numbers can be very intimidating, and they don't understand it. All these businesses, they do well what they do, whatever their business happens to be. My business just happens to be accounting, and I love it. So I say, invite me in. Let me be part of your team. And then I can break it down for them. I can make it simple so that I can explain to them their financial statements. And then we can start a dialogue and we can come up with a game plan. This is where I'm at today. I would like to open 2 more stores, or in 5 years, this is where I want to be. We can talk about that today. Invite me in. That's what I love to do. And that's what I can do for them. Let's sit down and have that dialogue. And I can break it down for them. They don't have to go to school and study accounting. I've already done it for them. And I can help them in that way.
And what's the business model? Like, if they are afraid from the cost, how would you charge businesses? Is it based on the revenue they generate, the number of employees? How do you form your pricing?
Initially, I'll charge by the hour. And then with a lot of the businesses, once I see what services they want from me, because I have so many different services, maybe they want to include payroll, maybe not. Maybe that, depending on what industry they're in, they might have different services that they need. So, but in the end, we'll just arrive at a flat monthly rate. Most companies I work with, I do it monthly, but we can do it quarterly. And we can just arrive. I work with the business owner, and we arrive at a flat monthly rate. This way they don't have any unexpected charges, and then I can work as a team member with them.
All right, so now we're joined by Edwin. Edwin works with Molly. Could you introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Edwin Rendon. I am a Cal State LA graduate, and I actually found Molly through the Cal State LA Alumni Association program.
That's awesome. So Molly, why is Edwin here?
Well, I love this guy. He's a college graduate, and in my business, I'm a mentor with Cal State LA and Cal State San Bernardino, and I like to hire college graduates, and that's how I met him. He contacted me. He's my mentee, but then also I hired him, so he works with me. He's the perfect candidate for me to hire. He comes already with a college education in accounting, and he helps to support me.
Between me and you, how is it working with Molly? Just don't tell her.
I wish
she's
I
not
could
going to
say
hear
better,
us.
I'm kidding, man. It's very hard to find someone that will give you the attention and is willing to even teach you. I came into the alumni association trying to find guidance as to, for my future. And what I did is not just find guidance. I found someone that I want to be like, a mentor that you want to, that gives you the ability to want to learn, that gives you the ability to want to pursue and be better every day. And that's what you get with Molly.
And between the theory that you learn in college and the practical experience that you work with when you join a firm like Molly's firm, what is the difference? Like, what do you learn differently from school?
Oh man. Well, in school you learn concepts. You learn, why A and B equals C. But when you're in the trenches, trying to reconcile an account, or if not, trying to clean up an account, I've seen it with Molly. We've worked on multiple different businesses that range from construction to auto shops and all that, and it's a different beast. You can't, and don't get me wrong. I mean, if you can't just pick up an accounting degree. You can't just pick up a client if you don't know what you're doing, and that's something that she taught me. You want to be able to give your everything to your client, to the client, and you also want to know what you're doing. Like she said, these pop-up accounting companies, they only last for so long because they don't, they can't provide the next level that a company needs.
Absolutely. And Molly, I forgot to ask you about the list of services that you provide.
Well, we do full charge accounting, bookkeeping, accounting, taxes, payroll, audit review, and CFO services, and business education. My undergrad is in business education, and I have a master's in accounting. That's what I bring to the table for the past 30 years with business owners. I teach them, I teach their staff everything related to business, to accounting, how to read a financial statement, what's the difference between an income statement and a balance sheet. And so I'm there as a partner. And also we can go over in more depth their accounting position as a CFO, as a controller. And then I do offer more business services, and I do this with every single client I work with because I'm a partner from day one. And when you work with businesses for years, you're a team member, you're a friend, it's personal. So I have one that he has over $2 million in payroll in 1 year. And his workers' compensation insurance is very high. In us reviewing his financial statements, his profit and loss, his expenses, his work comp expense was very high. So we're looking at that, and I said, we have to bring that lower. Let's get some quotes for cheaper insurance. So I'm out there shopping for cheaper insurance for him because I'm part of this game plan, and I enjoy it. When we look at his financial statement, his profit and loss at a given date, and then we put these changes in place, lower costs, lower insurance, all these things. And then at a future date, when we come back to the table and we see the difference, that's part of my success as well. And I enjoy that.
Yeah, you take ownership. You take ownership of the business, and you make the investment in your services tenfold to the client. So basically, if someone invests in services like yours, you can actually make the money back to the business owner because you can uncover a lot of things. Anything you can add about these things, like any case study or anything that you saw?
Yeah, definitely. I think ever since I started with Molly, she and what I like what she does is she includes you into the process of stuff, and you might not be doing anything, but you get to see the way her brain works. How for example, recently she got a new client, and I started looking at the books with her, and she's like, okay, let's look at their financial statements. And, we were looking at them, and then she said, oh my God, this is a little bit worse than I thought. But in my head, I'm just like, yeah, it looks pretty bad. But like, what is she talking about? And then when she actually explained to me, I was like, wow, that was right in my face, and I didn't even realize it. And I'm also a degreed accountant as well, but just, this is where the experience, this is where the, liking what you do comes in. It's very discouraging seeing something, and and just being like, wow, I have to clean that up. And I don't even know what half of it is, right? So yeah, I think that, and then also her ability to just be able to make things interesting. We all know accounting is boring here. That's the reality of it. That's the reality. And for someone to be able to make something boring fun and be able to paint the picture for you is exactly what you get with Molly.
And finally, is there any last words, and how can people get in touch with you?
My website, Small Business Accounting Services, for short, it's sbaservices.net. And they can call me and they can text me. And that's also something that makes my business different. I will pick up. What makes my business different is that I'm personable. There's 101 different accountants out there. There's many, many of us. I'm personal. You can call me anytime someone calls me, sends me a text, sends me an email, I respond. And that's not just the first time around. When we have a relationship for years, they can call me and they know I pick up. They know I pick up. If they have an emergency, I'm there. They're not worried. Call Molly, send it to Molly, and I'm there. And so that's what makes my business different.
Yeah, and you're very much involved in the community. You're in the Chamber of Commerce of Redlands. You're an ambassador. And it's a very, very nice to have met you and have known you. I can attest to how hospitable you are, how courteous you are with your advice. Like, you are a very generous person. So I appreciate you coming in today. Thank you for your time. And it's great what you shared with us today.
Thank you so much for having me.